Something significant is shifting in global power. The countries that once relied on Washington for their security are no longer waiting. They are moving, fast, together, and with purpose. What happens next could permanently reshape the world order as we know it. Welcome to Nord Brief, where we break down what the headlines really mean and why the decisions being made today will define the next decade of global politics. Stay with us through this one, because this story connects dots across Europe, the Middle East, and beyond. For decades, the foundation of Western security rested on a simple understanding: the United States leads and its allies follow. NATO was the vessel for that arrangement. American military presence, American intelligence, American diplomacy, all of it formed a protective umbrella over much of the democratic world. That arrangement is now visibly cracking, and the cracks are spreading faster than most analysts predicted even 2 years ago. The frustration building inside Europe did not appear overnight. It has been accumulating through months of public threats, political humiliations, and shifting demands coming from Washington. European governments have been told they are not spending enough on their own defense. They have been pressured to purchase American military hardware as a condition of continued partnership. And through it all, the possibility of a full American withdrawal from NATO has been treated not as a bluff, but as a genuine policy direction. So Europe is responding. Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has emerged as one of the most direct voices on this question. His position is no longer cautious or diplomatic in the traditional sense. Speaking publicly, he stated that Europe is prepared to move toward a common European army, not in a decade, not in 5 years, but immediately. His argument is straightforward. Medium-sized powers, acting individually, cannot assert themselves on the world stage. The only path to real security and real influence for European nations is through collective defense. Acting separately, each country exposes its own weaknesses. Acting together, they become a force that cannot be ignored. What makes Sanchez's position particularly notable is that he is not speaking in generalities. He is calling out a specific strategic reality. If external actors, whether states or political forces, sense division and fragmentation within Europe, they will exploit it. History supports this reading entirely. The post-World War II international order was built precisely on the lesson that divided democracies are vulnerable democracies. Europe is now reconnecting with that lesson under pressure. Sanchez went further, addressing what he described as the moral responsibility of Europe on the international stage. He argued that consistency in foreign policy is not optional. It is the currency of credibility. When Europe speaks about defending international law in Ukraine, it must apply that same standard everywhere. He specifically pointed to the situation in Gaza and Lebanon, saying that selective outrage destroys the moral authority Europe needs to lead. His government formally proposed that the European Union suspend its association agreement with Israel, citing what it considers clear violations of international humanitarian law within that agreement's own terms. This is not a fringe position in European politics anymore. Several EU governments have expressed similar concerns through varying degrees of diplomatic language. What Sanchez did was say it plainly, which is itself significant. Israel's government responded sharply, cutting off diplomatic engagement with Spain and opposing France's potential involvement in Lebanon-related negotiations. French President Emmanuel Macron had expressed humanitarian concern for Lebanese civilians caught in the crossfire of ongoing military operations. Netanyahu's government responded by declaring Macron unwelcome in any future negotiation process. Macron, for his part, appears unmoved. Macron has been engaged in a separate but connected thread of diplomacy, including meetings with Pope Leo XIV, the newly elected American-born Pope, whose public statements have drawn international attention. The Pope, born in Chicago, has spoken in clear moral terms about the use of religious language to justify violence against civilian populations. His position is that invoking the name of God or faith while conducting military operations that kill innocent people is not something his church will silently accept. According to reports from multiple outlets covering the Vatican, the Trump administration summoned the Pope's top envoy in the United States in what was described as a confrontational diplomatic meeting. The message reportedly sent was a reference to the Avignon papacy, a medieval episode in which the French monarchy effectively held the Catholic Church under its political control, relocating the Pope by force. Using that as a point of reference in modern diplomacy is, to put it plainly, an extraordinary escalation. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is reframing how the world should think about European security entirely. His argument is built on hard military logic, not idealism. He has outlined a specific coalition: the United Kingdom, Ukraine, Turkey, and Norway. Together, he argues, these four nations bring enough land forces, naval capability, and air defense to match, and in certain categories exceed, Russian military capacity. Without Ukraine and Turkey specifically, Europe's collective military strength falls short of what Russia is projected to field by 2030. With them, the equation changes completely. Zelensky's credibility on this point has been significantly strengthened by recent events. Ukraine's defense industry, tested under years of active warfare and refined through necessity, has become one of the most advanced producers of drone technology and battlefield systems in the world. According to reports from defense analysts and media outlets covering the Gulf region, Ukrainian military technology and expertise are now being sought by Arab nations, specifically those in the Gulf, who are facing Iranian drone threats and find themselves with diminishing confidence in American security commitments. Saudi Arabia and the UAE are reportedly in discussions to fund Ukrainian defense capabilities directly. This is a remarkable turn. Less than 18 months ago, Zelensky sat in the Oval Office and was told in front of cameras that he had no leverage, no cards, and nothing to negotiate with. Today, his country's military technology is being sought across 2 continents. That Oval Office meeting left a clear impression on observers worldwide. The confrontation between Zelensky and the Trump administration, captured publicly, showed the Ukrainian president calmly laying out military realities while being interrupted and lectured about gratitude. What was framed at the time as a display of American authority now reads, in retrospect, as a significant miscalculation of where the actual leverage in that relationship resided. Zelensky has also been explicit about his diplomatic test for Russian intentions. He proposed 3 steps that would, in his view, reveal whether Russia genuinely seeks peace. First, agree to a leadership-level meeting to discuss territorial questions. Russia declined. Second, allow American and European soldiers to be deployed along the contact line as peacekeepers during any ceasefire. Russia said no to any foreign military presence. Third, consider the basic territorial logic. Russia already controls approximately 17 million square kilometers of land, most of it undeveloped. The argument that it urgently needs an additional few thousand square kilometers of Ukrainian industrial territory does not hold up as a geographic claim. It holds up only as a strategic one. Zelensky's point is that Russia's interest in Donbass is not about land size. It is about capturing Ukraine's industrial capacity, its fortifications, and clearing a path toward regional capitals. Understanding that, he argues, is essential to understanding why any peace deal that concedes those territories is not actually peace. The situation in Hungary adds another dimension to this story. Budapest has been the scene of mass public demonstrations ahead of a closely watched national election. Hundreds of thousands of citizens gathered to express support for the TISA coalition, a pro-democracy opposition movement challenging Prime Minister Viktor Orban's Fidesz party, which has governed with increasing concentration of political power and maintained notably warm relations with Moscow. Protesters were heard chanting for Russia to leave, signaling that ordinary Hungarians are not aligned with their government's geopolitical orientation. The Trump administration publicly supported Orban ahead of the election, including statements suggesting financial incentives tied to an Orban victory. Voters at the rally appeared well aware of these interventions and were vocal in their rejection of them. Hungary's relationship with the European Union has been complicated for years. Orban has used his position to block or delay EU decisions on Ukraine funding and sanctions against Russia on multiple occasions. A change in government in Budapest would alter that dynamic significantly and potentially remove one of the most persistent friction points inside EU foreign policy coordination. Across the Atlantic, the diplomatic picture being shaped in Washington is also telling. Russian diplomatic officials have been welcomed in the United States, while sanctions that were imposed on Russia following the invasion of Ukraine are being systematically eased. The contrast, warm treatment for Moscow's representatives at the same time as pressure on European allies, has not gone unnoticed in foreign capitals. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer traveled to the Middle East to engage directly with Saudi Arabia and other Arab nations who are now navigating a security environment without reliable American backing. These are countries that built long-standing defense partnerships with the United States over decades. The rapid erosion of that relationship has forced them to look elsewhere. Britain's outreach is an attempt to fill some of that gap and signal continuity of Western engagement even as American posture shifts. France, for its part, has taken a step that may be small in scale but is significant in symbolism. The French government announced plans to replace certain Microsoft Windows installations in government systems with the Linux operating system. The stated reason is reducing dependence on American technology platforms and maintaining greater sovereign control over national data infrastructure. This kind of decision does not happen in isolation. It reflects a broader European instinct to reduce strategic vulnerabilities that have emerged from deep integration with American commercial and digital infrastructure. What ties all of these developments together is not a single alliance or a single political movement. It is a shared recognition that the post-1945 security architecture, which placed the United States at its center, is being renegotiated, not through planned summits or formal agreements, but through a series of unilateral American actions that are forcing other countries to adapt. Europe is not panicking, it is reorganizing. Whether this reorganization produces a genuine collective defense capability or remains a set of overlapping bilateral arrangements will depend on political will, budget commitments, and the ability of very different national governments to agree on command structures, procurement, and strategy. None of that is simple, but the direction of travel is now clear in a way it was not even 18 months ago. The world that emerges from this period will look different from the one that entered it. The question is not whether change is coming. The question is who shapes it, and whether democratic nations build something durable before the window closes. If you found this analysis useful, subscribe to Nord Brief for ongoing coverage of global security and political developments. Share your perspective in the comments, particularly on whether a European defense coalition is realistic in the near term. This video provides independent news analysis based on publicly reported information from verified media outlets. The script is written in original wording and presented for informational purposes.